Hello and welcome to this special edition of The Alternative Exit, live from the Employee Ownership Conference in Telford in the UK. And this has been brought to you by EOT Expert by Christian Wilson. So just imagine you've sold your business to an EOT and are now happily retired, spending your tax incentivized money when HMRC or the taxman knocks on your door to ask for the full repayment of your capital gains tax due on the sale. A trust, which is a huge pain. I mean, a trust 8-year-old company has just resigned and the team innocently but improperly accepted the resignation, inadvertently triggered a disqualifying event. This is a nightmare scenario. The truth is, running an EOT is not simple. From appointing trustees to managing the trust registers to keeping on top of all the annual one-off filings. One small mistake can be painfully expensive. This is where EOT Expert by Christian Wilson step in. His EOT Assured service keeps you compliant and confident with clear guidelines, templates and tailored support, whether you need a one-off transaction, support or ongoing retainer. Christian can even help you set up compliant bonus structures to ensure that your staff are getting the rewards that they deserve. So if you're looking to make a transition to an EOT or already established an employee ownership trust that wants peace of mind and proper governance, reach out to Christian at eotexpert.co.uk for technical expertise that's reassuringly human. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special series of the Alternative Exit podcast. Our guest here today is Liam Toms from Grapevine. Liam, what?
Hello, thank you, Andy. Thank you for having me.
Mate, no worries. I'd love it if you could just tell people a little bit more about who you are and what your role is at Grapevine.
So my name is Liam Toms. I work for Grapevine. We're what is known as a managed service provider. So we do the whole suite of IT and telecom services that are kind of all integrated nowadays anyway for our clients. My role is communications and engagement manager. I joined the business about 10 years ago in a sort of traditional marketing role. But particularly since we transitioned to EO in 2023, that role has become a lot broader in terms of responsibility. So I now have this very vague job title. So I can kind of, take responsibility for various other bits and pieces beyond just the traditional kind of marketing campaigns and that side of things.
Okay. So since 2023, still reasonably fresh.
Pretty much, yeah.
What's been the biggest change for you as an employee working in the business? It's now employee owned.
So it's interesting. We, as a company, were quite democratic anyway.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we had a traditional sort of management structure. But they were always very open to ideas, and we would have groups of people that would get around tables and share ideas. And I don't think there was ever an idea can only come from the top. So I think in some ways EO was a good fit for us, but I didn't see that coming at all. And we've got a client, Salad, who are EO. And I remember being
We've actually interviewed their founder.
That is brilliant. So we were aware of them being EO, and I thought that would be a really cool thing for us to do because we were getting to a point in the company history where the two chaps that started the business were looking to move on, but not knowing quite what that looked like. And I'd mentioned, would we ever go EO? And it was like, oh, well, maybe, you never know. And then it suddenly happened, and it was like, wow, I didn't actually think this would happen for us. But then within like a few months of rolling it out, and now, we're sort of like nearly 3 years in, it just seems so logical as a progression for our business. Like, I think it was a really good fit. So in terms of what's changed, it's been quite incremental over the last 3 years. I mean, when we first transitioned, it was very much business as usual and not a lot changed. But then there's other bits of like engaging our team that we wanted to make sure that they were on board with what was happening. So we couldn't just do business as usual. We had to demonstrate to them that something had actually changed to get them to actually come along that journey and not just see it as business as usual, which was kind of the starting mantra. But I think that was more so for our clients and their experience, that we couldn't disrupt our business too much. So it's business as usual, but on the inside, obviously we needed to embrace some change.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll talk about how you got people to embrace that change a little bit first, but just want to sort of pick up on something you said earlier, like it was a bit of a surprise for you. Did you, prior to the transaction, did you guys know that you were going to be employee owned?
We didn't. We're one of the cases where we didn't know. We found out that it was happening, and it was happening pretty imminently. And yeah, I mean, now looking back and hearing other people's stories, I can see why there's advice that you would consult your staff and go through this, because when we're looking at our team and their level of engagement with the EO concept, we've got to have some consideration for the fact that they didn't know this was coming. And also, I often think that if you're going to work for a company rather than starting your own business, you're doing it because you want the features of being employed rather than running a business.
True. Yeah.
And then I think suddenly you're saying to people, oh, actually, no, you've got these heightened responsibilities now that in some ways people didn't ask for.
Yeah.
Obviously, the flip side of that is that they also don't ask for a company to be bought out and then suddenly to have their jobs at risk, or the massive change that happens when a new owner comes in. So there's a bit of give and take, I think, on both sides. So I wouldn't say we did it totally wrong as a business at all. But yeah, we're one of the cases of we had no idea. We're just, we were brought in individually and it was explained to us in good detail.
Okay, so individually, there wasn't a broader announcement.
No. It was one by one, and I will be honest that I had heard some whispers about it in like the week before.
Yeah.
But I did a very good job of pretending to be totally surprised in that moment. Oh, really? This is happening? Yeah. The truth is, I had heard from another colleague that it was the announcement was coming.
Okay, mate, very cool. All right, so you had that. You have this one-on-one meeting. You get told that you're going to be an owner, and then what was your role post the transition in helping you understand employee ownership, but then you also helping the rest of the company understand?
I guess being the sole person in a marketing communications role, you also do an amount of internal communication. So I was tasked with some of that initially of trying to help people understand what was happening and keeping them up to date on that transitional process. But we also set up a EO forum, which was advised to us. So that was our equivalent of a council that some people have. Now, looking back, I think we would class that forum as being a transitional forum because we discontinued that concept about a year ago. But I was part of that group with our longest serving employee who joined the company 33 years ago.
Wow.
And a very new recruit as well. So I was sort of like the middle, and then we had a very new person and I would say very old person, very established, experienced person. And what happened was, because of that, the change, not just of status from traditional company to EO, but the change of management structure, it was an opportunity for us to really like peer under some rocks that hadn't been lifted for quite a few years. And in doing so, you find all sorts of issues that you didn't necessarily know were there. So the EO forum, as we had it, became a bit of a task squad of just, right, let's have a look at all this, life laundry that we have as a business from like the last 30 or so years, and start dealing with some of that. So I got involved in all sorts of things that I probably wasn't expected to. But in the spirit of EO, you're just like, well, somebody's got to take this on. And obviously there was a lot of going back and forth between us and the management team, the board of directors, to make sure they were happy that we were taking on some of this stuff. But I think it gave me and my elder colleague a lot of confidence that we could move into more of a management role in time, which is what's now happened. And our more junior colleague has gone back to doing his day job and is very good at what he does. But now we're looking to that the next year, and we want to reinstate something like a forum. But it's understanding who in the business we want to appoint that role, because I think it's a bigger responsibility than perhaps it seems on paper.
And like, does the forum, the new version, are they also sort of the employees' representative of trustees as well, like, or is that coming from a different part?
So on our board of trustees, we have a member of staff that is representing us as employees, but that would be separate from this new forum role. So being here this week, my hope is to get some inspiration for what our next forum/council, whatever it's called, might look like. And even just in the first moments this morning, we were talking to Ed from Grapevine Organics, and he was talking about how they've done it in terms of nominations and actual, that sort of democratic process of electing these people. So that's given us a lot of food for thought, no pun intended, with it being Riverford. But yeah, no, that was really helpful.
Okay. Now, I mean, you talked about sort of the transition to EO when you first started the forum. There were a few rocks to look under, or you found a few things when you started moving them around. I mean, one of the biggest fears when I'm speaking to other owners about the transition is that they're scared that employees are just going to come out and start having silly requests.
Right.
Like, hey, like, can you paint our bathroom? Can we get different type of biscuits in the tea room?
Yeah.
Like sort of non-business critical types of
Yeah.
things that needed to change. How did you did you get into those sort of requests from sort of team members as you and the forum were trying to identify those problems? But how did you start to rank them in terms of like a business priority of what you actually wanted to work on versus what needed to happen for the business to thrive in an EO model?
We definitely did get some of those, yeah. But I would say probably a smaller percentage of those things were the teas and toilets, as people like to refer to it as being. I think a lot of it was more people's views on the company and how the business had been run, and those sort of like weightier subjects that were coming out. But what we did as a forum is we held, they weren't one-to-ones because there was a couple of us and then one member of staff, but they were individual consultations with each colleague.
Yeah.
And we asked them, how are you feeling? And just gave that opportunity to see what was underneath their rock, of things that they've not spoken up about for a period of time. And what I did was I took all of that and coded it by themes. So rather than it be real specific examples or be from an individual person, kind of grouped it of like, what's the essence of what they're saying here? Is it about finances? Is it about collaboration? We established, I think it was about 11, so it wasn't a neat number.
Okay.
But 11's like my lucky number, so I was happy with it. And then we put it back out to everybody, because obviously some of those things wouldn't have been particular themes that others had raised. So we kind of put them out there and said, look, this is what kind of people said in summary, and then gave them another opportunity to anonymously rank the importance across the whole of those 11 themes.
Yeah.
So then we got a kind of a priority of this is the top thing. And I'm sure there were some cases there where the top thing may have not come up in someone's individual consultation, but once they saw it and it was articulated as this seems to be an issue, it kind of gave them a bit more insight to what people were thinking about, and they could say, well, this seems important, so I'm ranking that first. And then the plan was then that we'd just start working through that list in that order.
Okay, very good. So what type of education did you do to people coming in like prior to that survey? Right? Because you do talk about, like some people talk about that you need to educate people to act like owners.
Yeah.
Especially when you're asking them to think about what are the next steps for the business. Did you guys do anything like that?
So I come from an academic background, and I think the report that I put together that summarized each of those themes was probably a bit dense in terms of text. And I think the thing that I've learned in the last couple of years is that you have to consider the different ways that people learn. So although that worked at a time, we're trying to do more in-person sessions with people. So we introduced, so this year we've started to refer to our team as co-owners. Just to kind of like, everything is branded co-owners. So we have co-owner survey, co-owner meeting, co-owner lounge. Everything is co-owner. Just on a daily basis, just remind people that there's this, this crazy thing that's happened in our company in the last few years. Because I think when you're very busy with client work, you can kind of overlook that. But sorry, in answer to your question, we started to do an annual AGM type meeting, which wasn't something we'd ever done before. And I think people were a little bit kind of confused going into it, like, what is this? This is new. But presenting that information in a variety of ways, I think, was really important to kind of get that across. We still do the text-based stuff as well, but I do like a more digestible, like weekly email with like highlights of information that people need to know about the business. But in terms of that, educating them about what employee ownership was, I don't know whether we necessarily got that right, but I don't think we knew really what was
right.
So I think it's a kind of a weird sort of ebb and flow of like, we learn a little bit, we step back, review it, and then reflect on then how do we then disseminate this part of it. Even coming down to the conference, I attended last year to represent us on my own, but you're never alone in this space.
Totally.
You just sit down for lunch and you end up, becoming best friends with people. It's amazing. But I then went back and had to disseminate some of that to our team, which is a difficult thing to do because I think unless you're here in this space, you don't really kind of get the actual atmosphere. So a little bit is lost in translation. But our plan is to slowly bring more of our team here. And obviously the EOA have other events, so you have the face-to-face meetups. We're very lucky on the South Coast that we have a good community of EO businesses that organise events too. So it's encouraging some of those colleagues that wouldn't normally come to this sort of event to go along. And it might be the first time they've ever been to like a business event. But I think they see it then firsthand and they hear from other people. So even though, well, we're cheating a little bit because we're not training them, we're putting them in the place where they can learn from other people. And I think that's
Even
almost
better.
more powerful because I think, they hopefully they respect us, but there's an amount of, we're kind of their parents in this weird family dynamic. And I think it's better to learn from like a cool uncle or auntie, from another family, that you kind of can think a little bit more impartially about and learn that way. So I think, so sorry, to answer your question in terms of educating people is understanding that real diverse mix of how do we get this across on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about being sort of quite a democratic and quite an open company prior to the transition. Has any of those like management practices changed? I mean, you also talk about doing lots of communications. I mean, do you guys open the books more? Do you have more of those opportunities other than outside of the forum that you've created for people to contribute and participate?
Yeah, I mean, we do. What's interesting is things like finances. You think that would be the big one that people want to know about, but finances are very inaccessible, right?
Yeah.
Even if you make them, like accessible as in you can reach them. To actually understand what is there is difficult. So we were kind of like just put it out there exactly as we had it for people to read on a month-to-month basis, and no one was really that bothered about it, And then we stopped for a little bit because we were just going through some changes with our accounting system, and nobody missed it. No one was like, "Where's the finances?" Because it's still there for them, but they didn't miss it when we were pushing it out to them.
Yeah.
So we're now thinking, well, we want people to understand this, but how do we present it in a way that is a little bit more accessible and digestible? But in terms of management,
so what does that look like now?
I don't know. That's what I'm. I've got a shopping list of things that I want to figure out from this conference. So I don't know what that's going to look like.
Okay.
But maybe part of it is actually talking to our people and understanding like what do they see when they see a spreadsheet of numbers.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a words person. I'm not a numbers person. So if I see a sheet of numbers, I just kind of just blank out. It doesn't mean a lot to me. So I need tables and graphs and all that sort of thing to really better get my head around it. But I want to know what that looks like for everybody else as well.
Okay.
So I think before we proceed with anything, if I get like a great idea this week, I don't think we will just roll it out. I think we would probably do a bit of a pilot to see what people think. And in terms of management in general, I think it's kind of the same in terms of that democratic nature. But I think the other thing that we're learning is that people actually do want to be managed. And when you kind of give them this uncertainty and too much sort of fluidity of those traditional structures, they can be a bit lost in terms of, should I be doing this? Shouldn't I be doing it? And then they kind of go into paralysis and they don't do anything at all. So we've established a senior management team. So we went from, when we transitioned, we had 4 directors that went down to 2. And then those guys had more on their plate. So we've established a senior management team now, which consists of our 2 directors, me, my colleague from the forum previously, and our employee trustee. We make up a senior management team. And the idea, and we've even changed this in the last couple of weeks, we want to now say to our team that as though there's line management structures, you can come to any of us as a senior management team. And the hope is that we're working together as a 5 harmoniously. So if you come to one of us, you're going to get a similar answer, perhaps a different perspective, depending on who you speak to.
Okay, that's super cool. So, I mean, as you're going through the transition, what have you found is the biggest challenge in terms of being an employee-owned company?
That is a good question, which is always the answer people give, I know, when they're trying to stall you to think of a response. The biggest challenge, I do think the biggest frustration maybe is people in our business who can't see the potential.
Okay.
And I get that, people have their lives and, plenty of other stuff going on and their day job, which shouldn't be overlooked. But I think sometimes we hope to see a bit more enthusiasm. Like if we're coming to a conference or event, we want people to be fighting over each other for tickets to the place to actually come to this. But to flip that, I understand that they perhaps maybe don't feel confident coming to this sort of event, or just don't understand what the benefits are.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a frustration that initial enthusiasm isn't there. But I think that is somewhat on us to build the enthusiasm. And I do worry that sometimes I become a little bit of like a propaganda machine of like,
that's your job, isn't it?
Well, maybe. But just constantly reaffirming, how exciting it is. And even just, as I say, the community that we've got on the South Coast, we're really lucky that some of them were clients previously, some of them have become clients since. But but not every corner of the UK has that. You know, so for some people, they're coming into this event here to meet up with other EO businesses, perhaps for the first time this year.
Yeah.
We're lucky that we do that, 3 or 4 times a year without really even leaving our immediate area. But trying to get that across to our colleagues of how special that is and how lucky we are to have that. I think as well, whilst you're going through the period of paying off the deferred consideration, you're not necessarily always been able to do like profit share.
Yeah, I was going to ask. That's one clear way to make people feel it.
And we were very lucky in the first year that we paid a very healthy profit share.
Yeah.
A bit to just kind of set that bar of, this is what you can expect. But a lot of that landed for us in that first year of EO because we were coming off the back of the pandemic where a lot of decisions were being put on hold. So suddenly we had a really good year.
Yeah.
So that suited us because it was our first year of employee ownership. So we did do a really healthy profit share that year. Last year, obviously then we didn't have quite as much of a pipeline and there were some other external factors that were a challenge. So we couldn't do a profit share. Now, if you look at the first year and you kind of spread it across 2 years, that's still a good profit share for 2 years. But I get it.
People don't think like that.
No, it's like we did really well and then we're not doing well. It's like, no. Business is like peaks and troughs, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tricky. But I think even with that, I don't think we've had a consistent enough experience of this for people to see the bigger picture.
Well, it's still early days.
Yeah,
I
I think a lot of it is just sort of circling around them.
Yeah.
And when they get chance to, they kind of dip into understanding a bit of it. So yeah, I think that is a challenge to overcome.
Yeah.
But I think listening to some of the talks last year and what we've seen already today, I don't think we're at the beginning. I think we're somewhere in the middle, which is a good position to have got to in 2 and a bit years. So I'm kind of looking for the bits now like that we're missing and the bits that can kind of supplement and complement what we're already doing.
Yep. So we're talking about challenges. As I said, like there are some people not really feeling it.
Yeah.
What has been the big wins, like for the business and then for you personally?
For the business, as I say, we've substantially grown the business.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you could attribute that purely to EO, but I think for the people in the company that have driven that, there's been a renewed enthusiasm from them and a renewed energy because suddenly you're seeing that you're doing this for everybody rather than it just funneling upwards, right? So that changes that dynamic. And suddenly, the extra hour that you might not have put in before, you do. So yeah, the business is in a much better position than it was when we transitioned, both financially, but also I think culturally. A lot of the things that we've done that we perhaps wouldn't have done before because we'd have shied away from it, we've had that confidence to try new things. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of my win as well. There's certain ideas that I've had bubbling for years that I just didn't do for whatever reason. I'm like, right, I actually want to do this now. And I feel a little bit more creative freedom to do some of those things. For example, last week, we hosted our first annual conference of our own, which was a little half-day event. We had a little bit of drama because the venue that we were supposed to have it in cancelled a week before, so we had to take the whole thing and shift it somewhere else, but it worked out probably better than the other venue.
That's all right.
But that was a hell of a lot of work. But to step back and to see that, I'm like, that wasn't an idea that I had this year. I've been sort of percolating on that idea for sort of 2 or 3 years. But so little things like that I perhaps wouldn't have done before. And I don't know why. I don't know if I could attribute it to any one thing, but I just feel that greater sense of ownership being the key word here, obviously. And yeah, so definitely there's a selection of like small wins that are all kind of this similar theme of just thinking, what, we can do this and not being too sort of downtrodden by things that held us back in the past.
Yep. It's very nice. So I like to finish these podcasts just asking people 3 quick questions.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, sorry, I've been giving really long answers. So.
No. Like, don't worry. I was framing that for where we're going. So who's the leader that you most admire in employee ownership?
Wow. That's not a quick question, is it? I
often get that response too.
I will say Bella from Salad.
Yep. I'll link. She's a prior guest. I'll link to her episode in the show notes.
She was one of the first people that reached out to us when we became employee owned. And we had a good chat back then, which would have been, nearly 3 years ago. And the one piece of advice that she gave me was do things different so people see that something has changed. And I probably like said that through this conversation this morning.
But to be honest, it's not something I hear all the time.
Okay.
Like, some people sit there and go like, we just want to keep things consistent.
Yeah.
But I do really love that, because you've got to actually make people feel like there's a difference, there's a change.
Yeah, so definitely Bella, and
Bella, nice.
she's just been really supportive. I can see her walking across the room now, actually. How weird. And even in the last couple of days, she invited me to be part of the panel that she's hosting tomorrow. Sorry.
Okay.
So yeah,
Very
she's
cool.
very cool.
Awesome. So, and then what's your favorite resource on employee ownership?
I mean, I'm going to say the conference, because I think as much as there is so much on the EO Hub and, other places online that lots of people are beginning to put together, that you can't beat just being in the room with people, because it's the things that people don't think to put on paper. You know what I mean? It's these kind of like, it might be a throwaway remark to you or I, but for someone else, it's like, that's the
perfect spark
light bulb moment, right? So yeah, to have this huge opportunity to bring 800 people together it's really special.
Yeah, and you can probably tell by the background noise, there is quite a buzz.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is really cool.
Crazy.
And then finally, what's something that you would say to a business owner who's sitting on the fence about a transition towards employee ownership?
Do you know what? Go for it, right? And it may not be right for every business, but I think listening to James Delevine this morning talking about it as a real progressive model, I just think, do you know what? Give it a go. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. What's the alternative at this point? You sell to a bigger organization. I think we've had enough of that. Every week we're hearing about these household brands that we've known for years that are suddenly getting swallowed up. The whole media industry is like folding in on itself. So I think just give it a go. Like, there's so much resource out there.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, okay, it might be complicated to reverse engineer it backwards, but you gave it a shot, right?
Yeah.
But maybe in the first instance, perhaps consult with your team, other employee-owned businesses, and the EOA. But yeah, have the confidence that this isn't just like a pie in the sky idea. This is a real cemented business model, and I think it's going to be around for a long time.
Awesome. Brilliant. Liam, people want to follow your story, and where can they go?
I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so if you just search Liam Toms, I'm pretty much the only one. There is like a Gen Alpha person called Liam Toms that's coming up through now, but I have all the usernames and stuff,
nice.
the original URL, so you should be able to find me. And then Grapevine is currently grapevine.uk.com. So learn a bit more about the business there.
All right, well, Liam, thanks for joining us on the Alternative Exit.
It's been great. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.